What is up, JL Life? Modo here. Today I'm going to be showing you how to install the track bar sector shaft brace from Steersmarts. Stay tuned. So real quick, before we get into this install, I just want to explain what this part is used for. So this is a dual benefit part. It does two things. One, the track bar bracket that hangs off of the frame is very thin. It's very flimsy, and a track bar is a part that takes on a lot of stress and strain when you're off-roading, and the bracket has been known to snap off. Now what this does is it reinforces that bracket and gives it extra strength. Oh, I'm getting big. The other benefit is that the steering box, Jeep trying to make the Jeep as light as possible. Well, anyways, what it does when you're steering, if you haven't noticed, the JLs have that little bit of dead spot when you're trying to turn, and what's happening is there is deflection in the steering gearbox to where you're turning the wheel and it's going into the gearbox. It shifts ever so slightly, which is what you're feeling, your dead spot when steering. What this does is it hooks onto the bottom, holds the sector shaft onto the frame, more so eliminates all of that extra deflection, and of course it's also going to lessen the likeliness of your sector shaft snapping when you are off-roading, because it's a high stress point and it's just reinforcing everything. That's all it is. It's reinforcement for the sector shaft on the gearbox, and it holds the gearbox to the frame better, and of course it reinforces the track bar itself. But let's get into the install. So to get started, we're going to remove the track bar first. I've only removed the tire because it's going to be easier to show you guys and for filming purposes. So after getting the track bar removed, we're going to be removing the sector shaft nut, which is right here off of the steering box. To find it, just follow the drag link up to the pitman arm, this bolt right here. It's a big one. You're going to need a size 42 socket to be able to get it off. Now, I strongly recommend using a quality impact to get this off. If you don't have one, well, a breaker bar and a U-joint and trying to get it off would be your next best bet. Just to let you guys know, this is not what yours is going to look like. This is a previous track bar brace that I had on before. It's one of the early adaptations Steersmarts had for this piece. Of course, we're taking this out and putting the new one in.
So I wasn't too sure what was going on here, but my socket wasn't quite fitting on the nut, which was just really weird to me because I've never messed with this nut before. Then it kind of dawned on me that I took my Jeep in to get the aluminum gearbox swapped out for the steel gearbox. They got to mess with this nut. Freaking dealers. I ended up just getting a mallet and hammering it on. And how easy it broke. It's immensely concerning. At this point of the install, you're going to need to remove your sway links and sway bar out of the way so you can access the bolts on your steer box.
After getting the sector shaft nut loosened, we can go to removing the 4 bolts that are holding the steering box to the frame, and they're right here. So it is important to make sure you do the sector shaft nut first. These bolts are what holds the steering box to the frame, which will give you the resistance that you need to break that bolt. But after breaking that nut and getting it to the point where it can come off, you can go to removing these 4 bolts. So this last one, the top right, that one can be tricky to get to if you have the spring in the way, because it doesn't fully get in there. How I have it now, it's actually making enough contact for me to put on. But a trick I'm going to show you, so if you do have issues getting to this bolt, you won't have to remove the spring to be able just to pull that and put one back in. Get yourself a ratchet strap. Hook the other end down along the frame. Tighten it up. And gently pull the spring over, which will give you an easier line on that bolt. And we can go and remove this sector shaft nut. So I was a little curious. My 42 socket didn't quite fit on this, and I couldn't quite understand why. As you can see, I had to hammer it on. So got the caliper out. It's a 42. I'm not too sure why it was having issues fitting.
We concluded the dealer boogered up the sector shaft nut when they installed the steer gearbox in my Jeep. Gotta love dealers.
So one of the things I really like about this kit, it actually comes with all new hardware. It doesn't force you to reuse hardware like some other sector shaft brace kits that are out there. Looking at this kit, you will notice, one, it comes with a new track bar, bolt and nut. Set that aside, and it's going to come with, doesn't want to, wants to be in the frame. So you have 4 short bolts and 2 long bolts. You have the aluminum steer box. You're going to use the 2 long bolts, and they're going to go into the holes on the front of the frame. You're going to take the 2 short bolts, and they're going to go in the back. If you have the steel one, which is what I have, you're going to use all 4 of the short bolts. We won't be using the long ones. And if you have a JT, you're going to notice that you have another bracket here reinforcing the spring perch. You're actually going to have to trim that down to where you can get this to fit. So we're going to go ahead and put the bracket on, feed it into the holes, and what you're going to need to do is make sure before you put the bolts on, put on your lock washer followed by your flat washer. Before putting these bolts in, I suggest a little bit of red Loctite. You are going to grab the gearbox and you're going to maneuver it until the holes line up. So another nice little install trick is to put the track bar bolt in before you tighten any of the bolts. And the reason you want to do that is to help hold the brace in place. You don't want to get to the end of your install, you had everything tightened down, only to find out that your track bar holes don't line up properly and you have to loosen everything again. We don't want to do that. I prefer less work, not more. So the way we're going to torque these, we're going to torque them down to, again, this is the steel box. You're going to torque the bolts down to 44 foot-pounds. So once you hear that click, now what you do from where it's at, you're going to rotate it another 135 degrees. So you don't need a torque wrench for this portion. There's close to about 90, close to about 90. And we'll roughly put it there. And you'll just do that with all 4 of the bolts. So if you have the aluminum box, the 2 front long ones, you're actually going to, again, torque those down to 44 pounds and add 170 degrees past that. If it's the steel box, all of them go to the 44 foot-pounds with an additional 135 degrees. So the next thing we're going to be installing is going to be your new sector. So now we're going to be installing our new sector shaft nut. Before you put it on, make sure you add yourself some red Loctite. Now it comes with 2 different washers, depending on your specific application. If you need to use both or one. So the washer goes on first, then just hand thread your new nut on. This will actually be torqued down to 177 pounds. So now we're going to take our sector shaft brace, and you can see it has an angled side and a flat side. The flat side goes to the front of the Jeep, the angled side goes to the rear. But you're going to just put it over your new sector shaft nut, and you're going to bolt it in place with these holes. New hardware, these little guys come with it. Just put a little bit of red Loctite on it and get it to where it needs to be. There's one, and you have one on the opposite side. And the kit also comes with a snap ring. Careful not to bend it while you're trying to tear it out of its heavy duty plastic bag. This little lip at the bottom of the sector shaft nut, and just get it in place. What I really like about this, if your bolts happen to come loose, this won't start to sag down and be grabbing your sector shaft nut at a strange angle, which will just be more likely to cause breaking. But I'm going to tighten these down, and we can just go and tighten up these bolts, which is a size 13. The torque settings on these are like 25 to 30 pounds. It's not much. Make sure you get both sides. Now that we have all of our 6 bolts tightened, we can take out the new track bar bolt and reinstall the track bar. There we go. So with the track bar bolt, I recommend installing it backwards to where the stud is going to the front of the Jeep. And the reason being, it gives you more clearance so the back of the bolt isn't hitting your axle, spring perch, truss, those type of things. Just tighten it down. Once you get that tightened down, reinstall your sway links, and it's done. Obviously, before you wrap up, make sure you take out the ratchet strap. So guys, we are all done. As you saw, super easy install, and I hope this helps you in the event that you are currently installing this part. But guys, thank you so much for watching. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, and share. Stay tuned for the next one, y'all. Keep it easy.